First Peter Thiel's influence in Silicon Valley, it's undeniable.
And what's so captivating is how his impact goes even further than just him directly being involved.
It's interesting you say that because he's not directly part of this incoming administration.
But that doesn't mean he doesn't have influence.
Not at all.
It's actually quite the opposite. We're seeing a lot of people who are very closely connected to him.
Assuming really important positions.
Exactly. And this concentration of influence all coming from a single network, it really makes you think about the impact it could have across different sectors.
For sure. And one person who immediately comes to mind is JD Vance. His connection to Thiel goes way back to 2021 when Thiel actually introduced Vance to then candidate Trump.
And now Vance is the vice president-elect. So you can really see how far Thiel's influence reaches. It goes right to the top.
Vance's journey is the perfect example of how Thiel's network works. It's not just about money. It's about shared ideas and a vision for the future that seems to connect them.
Absolutely. And when you look at Thiel's involvement in things like the Stanford Review, Founders Fund, even his own personal foundation, it's like he's woven this intricate web of connections that now extends all the way to the White House. So understanding where this network comes from is crucial.
The Stanford Review keeps popping up. It's that conservative student newspaper that Thiel co-founded when he was at Stanford.
Right. And it seems to be this common thread among a lot of the people in his network.
Like a breeding ground for certain political leanings that we're now seeing play out in their current roles.
Exactly.
David Sachs, another example, he was involved with the Stanford Review and worked with Thiel at PayPal. And now he's been appointed as the White House's quote-unquote AI and crypto czar.
A brand new position that really highlights the focus this incoming administration is putting on these emerging technologies.
And Thiel has always been very vocal about his support for both AI and cryptocurrency. So it seems strategic that Sachs is in a position to potentially shape policies in these areas.
It definitely does. And it's not just Sachs. Jim O'Neill, who was the CEO of Thiel's personal foundation, has been chosen as the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services.
That's really interesting considering O'Neill's background. How do you see that move in the context of Thiel's influence?
To me, it shows that Thiel's network isn't limited to just tech or defense. It reaches into so many different areas and could influence policy decisions in ways we might not expect.
And Elon Musk is another big name connected to Thiel.
Of course, their relationship goes back to their PayPal days. And Thiel's Founders Fund was an early investor in a bunch of Musk's companies, including SpaceX.
And now Musk is going to be heading the newly established Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah, that appointment really tells you a lot about the administration's focus on streamlining government operations and maybe even using Musk's disruptive style to make things happen.
And then there's Trey Stevens, a general partner at Founders Fund.
He's being considered for the position of Deputy Secretary of Defense, which further strengthens the link between Thiel's network and the Department of Defense.
So with that potential appointment and Founders Fund's investments in defense tech companies, you have to wonder if we're going to see a shift in defense priorities and how technology is used.
Absolutely. The concentration of Thiel's associates within the Department of Defense is something to watch closely because it could be a way for him to influence national security policies and how the military uses technology.
And another key player in all this is Michael Kratsios.
Kratsios, who was Thiel Capital's chief of staff and a director at Scale AI, a company backed by Founders Fund, will be handling tech policy during the Trump transition.
So his role in shaping the technological landscape for the next 4 years is pretty significant.
It really is, and his background at Thiel Capital and his connection to Scale AI, which is all about artificial intelligence development, are important to note.
It sounds like AI is going to be a major focus for this administration's tech policy.
I think that's a safe bet. AI will likely be a central focus of the administration's tech policy.
It seems like Thiel's influence during Trump's previous presidency really set the stage for all of this.
Yeah, during Trump's first term, Thiel was a big supporter. He even donated over $1 million to his campaign and spoke at the Republican National Convention.
And even back then, he was strategically placing people from his network in key positions.
Exactly. Ken Howery, who was also part of the Stanford Review and PayPal, he was the U.S. ambassador to Sweden during Trump's first term, and Kratsios himself was the White House Deputy Chief Technology Officer.
So this strategy of getting people from his network into the government has been going on for a while.
It's a long game, and it seems to be paying off. The reach of his network in this incoming administration is pretty remarkable.
It is interesting, though, that even with his past support, Thiel didn't donate to any campaign this time around.
He actually said he wasn't convinced that money mattered at the federal level anymore, and he wasn't sure the election would focus on things like technological advancement and economic issues.
But even without directly giving money, his influence is still there.
It comes from the network he's built, the shared beliefs and the vision they have for the future.
What are Thiel's political motivations, and how could they shape the policies of this new administration?
Well, his politics are complicated. They've evolved over time. He's been called a conservative libertarian with some nationalist leanings. He's a strong supporter of cryptocurrency and AI, and he's always argued for less government involvement in these sectors.
So given the positions his associates now hold, could we see a push for deregulation in these areas?
It's possible Thiel's views on regulation, especially in the tech world, could definitely have an impact on the decisions made by the people he's helped put in power.
This brings us back to JD Vance, who's right at the center of it all.
Their relationship goes beyond just being a mentor. Vance actually worked for Thiel at Mithril Capital, and Thiel supported Vance's venture fund, Narya Capital.
So there's a strong financial and ideological link between them.
A very strong link, and it's especially important considering Vance is now the vice president-elect. He's in a unique position to carry out Thiel's vision and maybe even influence the presidency itself.
It's amazing how Thiel has put his allies in these positions to have so much influence at the highest levels of government.
It's like a carefully planned out strategy to shape the future of American politics and technology. His long-term thinking and how he's built this network are impressive.
Even though Thiel has stepped back publicly, his advice to Vance about running for president in 2028 says a lot about his interest in shaping the political scene.
Definitely shows he's thinking long-term and wants to keep his influence. Even after this administration, the rise of the Thiel network is not just a temporary thing. It could be a powerful force in American politics for years to come.
What's really fascinating is how Thiel's influence isn't just about individual appointments. It's like he's created a whole system of shared values and goals that goes beyond specific sectors.
It's about promoting a certain way of looking at the world and then giving people who share that view the power to make decisions.
So it's not just about who's in charge, but about the ideas that guide them.
Exactly. Thiel's network is not just about personal connections, but about a shared ideology that aims to shape the future of technology, government, and society.
It's not just about who's in charge, but about the ideas that guide them.
Exactly. Thiel's network is not just about personal connections, but about a shared ideology that aims to shape the future of technology, government, and society.
What are the potential implications of this concentration of influence?
That's a big question. On the one hand, you could see a lot of innovation and efficiency, especially in areas like AI and government reform.
But on the other hand, there are concerns about a lack of diversity of thought and a potential bias towards certain ideologies.
Absolutely. When one network has this much power, it can turn into an echo chamber where different voices are shut out and alternative viewpoints are ignored.
So that brings up concerns about transparency and accountability if policy decisions are heavily influenced by a small group with shared interests. How can we be sure those decisions actually benefit the public good?
That's definitely something to think about. The concentration of influence in the hands of a few, no matter their intentions, can erode public trust and create an imbalance of power.
This whole conversation has really highlighted how the relationship between Silicon Valley and Washington is changing. It seems like the lines are blurring with tech figures like Thiel having a lot of political influence.
It's a trend that's been growing for a while, and it's likely to keep going as technology becomes even more important in our lives.
So how might this network's influence actually impact the average person?
Well, that's a question we all need to consider because the policies that are put in place, the technologies that are prioritized, even the direction of the country will all be shaped to some degree by this network.
It's a reminder for all of us to stay informed, to think critically, and to hold our elected officials accountable no matter what their connections are.
Because the future isn't set in stone. It's shaped by the choices we make, the voices we support, and the questions we're willing to ask.